All right, welcome to Poetry Formative number 1. We're talking today about why poetry. So the first chunk of reasons come from academics. So a few big reasons why we're studying poetry in 1011X is that it offers opportunities for deep analysis. It also offers opportunities for you to do some deep focused revision. So when you're writing your poems, you're going to be revising them quite a bit. Throughout this unit, we're going to do a few different activities to help you with your vocabulary acquisition. So to get better words to use for better situations. Literary features, you're going to learn a bunch of those. We'll add to your literary feature toolbox. You'll also learn how to structure things with purpose. So that is true, it will be true for you about poetry, but it will also be true for you and it will transfer to other types of writing. And then the final reason is that it's great to learn something new. So for brain health, if you learn something new and stretch your brain, you're going to be able to learn other things better later on. Why poetry? The human answer. Because it helps people cope and process through difficult things. So times like this where life is really weird and it's hard to just go about your daily business, poetry can help you process through that. It also helps people notice the little things about life that we so often forget about. So maybe the little things that make every day better, or the little things that make some days worse, or just the little things that make living life beautiful. And honestly, it's one of the oldest forms of writing. People have been writing in poems for thousands of years, so it's worth learning about and worth knowing about.
I read poetry all the time and write about it frequently and take poems apart to see how they work because I'm a word person. I understand the world best, most fully in words rather than, say, pictures or numbers. And when I have a new experience or a new feeling, I'm a little frustrated until I can try to put it into words. I think I've always been that way. I devoured science fiction as a child. I still do. And I found poems by Andrew Marvell and Matthew Arnold and Emily Dickinson and William Butler Yeats because they were quoted in science fiction and I loved their sounds. And I went on to read about a tavarima and medial caesuras and enjambment and all that other technical stuff that you care about if you already care about poems, because poems already made me happier and sadder and more alive. And I became a poetry critic because I wanted to know how and why. Now, poetry isn't one thing that serves one purpose any more than music or computer programming serve one purpose. The Greek word poema just means a made thing, and poetry is a set of techniques, ways of making patterns that put emotions into words. The more techniques you know, the more things you can make, and the more patterns you can recognize in things you might already like or love. That said, poetry does seem to be especially good at certain things. For example, we're all going to die. Poetry can help us live with that. Poems are made of words, nothing but words. The particulars in poems are like the particularities, the personalities that distinguish people from one another. Poems are easy to share, easy to pass on, and when you read a poem, you can imagine someone's speaking to you or for you. Maybe even someone far away, or someone made up, or someone deceased. That's why we can go to poems when we want to remember something or someone, to celebrate, or to look beyond death, or to say goodbye. And that's one reason poems can seem important, even to people who aren't me, who don't so much live in a world of words.
I showed you that video by Stephen Burt because I think he brings up some really good points on why poetry can be beneficial for the average person, not the average English teacher. Even though Poetry is difficult. It is demanding. I think it serves an important place in our society. And even if you end this unit not enjoying poetry, that's okay. The goal isn't to convince everybody to love it. The goal is just to show you what it can do. Here's a quote that I think shows really well what the purpose of poetry is. Paradoxically, poetry is an expression of the fact that there are great things that are inexpressible. There's no one-to-one correspondence between the depths of human experience and the capacities of language to capture that experience. There are experiences that go beyond the ability of language to express them. For the poet, this limitation of language does not produce silence, it produces poetry. Poetry is a kind of verbal resistance to the impenetrability of human experience. The poet will at least try. So I really like that quote because it explains where poetry lives. It lives in that in-between, between the things that we feel and the things that we see, and these really big ideas and the ability of our language to capture those ideas. Poetry kind of lives in between there. And that's why I think it's such an interesting art form, is you're trying to capture something that really can't be captured, like a feeling or a moment or anything like that. So really, poetry for me is to capture a moment. It's the same reason that we take pictures and we post them. We want to capture a moment and send it out to other people. Wanting to do that, I think, is one of the most common human experiences, to have an experience and share it with others. It's why people are Instagram influencers. It's why people have YouTube channels. It's why we tell our friends stories. It's why we take pictures. It's why we send people pictures, memes and jokes and poems and videos. They're all capturing one moment, one idea, one feeling, and trying to send that message out. So those are some of the biggest reasons why we're going to do poetry in this class. But I want you to look at some of the resources below and decide and respond to those questions that are just a little bit further down. What do you think about the choice to do poetry in this class?